Happy New Year!
Geno Smith to the Raiders, Sam Darnold to the Seahawks. Myles Garrett made more money than he could reasonably pack into a suitcase, so he stayed with the Browns. The NFL free agency period is moving fast. It has to. The draft will soon be here, and there's nothing else to talk about. It's time to detail some of the biggest and most interesting moves this NFL offseason. It's going to affect your team. It's going to affect your fantasy team, because these players just won't stay put. Welcome to Shut Up Football. I'm Jeff Stoltzfus. That's Kevin. We're looking at the NFL free agency to determine who actually got better, who took the biggest risks, and who's stuck in NFL purgatory. Last year, the Bills traded the Browns for wide receiver Amari Cooper in the middle of the season. I don't think that worked out the way they were hoping. Well, Cooper's gone now. He's not currently on any team. The Bills replaced him with former Charger Josh Palmer. He signed a 3-year deal worth $36 million. In a vacuum, Josh Palmer is a big step down from Amari Cooper. What were they thinking? I actually like this move. Palmer isn't flashy, he's solid, he's physical. Honestly, he feels like a Bill, a possession receiver that can run block. For a team that doesn't seem to run through one receiver, this is another quality option for Josh Allen. They also extended Kahlil Shakir on a 4-year deal, who somehow still feels like he's on the up. Looking back, that might be the sexier move here. The Miami Dolphins signed Zach Wilson on a 1-year deal to back up Tua Tagovailoa. I think he's the only backup quarterback on the roster right now. Welcome to South Beach, Zach. Probably a lot of single moms excited by this. I have no idea if his pit stop with Sean Payton's Broncos last year helped him develop in any way. Probably not, since he was riding shotgun to a rookie, but I like this for the Dolphins. Tua had a hard time staying healthy. Skylar Thompson wasn't a viable backup plan for them. I would rather they have gone after someone like Cooper Rush, but he cost $10 million more, so maybe this was a cap issue. They also picked up wide receiver Nick Westbrook-Ikhine on a 2-year, $6.5 million deal. I like that move too. Tyreek Hill is 31 years old, pitching fits and talking about retirement, and has had a few legal issues. Plus, the average height between Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Malik Washington is 5'9". Westbrook-Ikhine is 6'3". Nice to have a receiving option that can reach the top shelf. The New England Patriots signed defensive tackle Milton Williams to a 4-year, $104 million deal. That is probably too much for what they're getting. But Williams just won the Super Bowl, where he had 2 sacks and forced a fumble. Somebody was going to pay him, and it wasn't going to be the Eagles. Williams is actually a good player, so it's not a bad signing for the Patriots. There's just a bit of hype and momentum involved here that will probably, unfortunately, put this move under extra scrutiny later on. He's not going to take over any games for the Patriots, which is why it's nice to see that they added linebacker Robert Spillane. This is the guy Antonio Pierce said he'd build a defense around. Last year, he had 91 tackles, 2 picks, and 2 sacks for the Raiders. He's smart, he's extremely physical, and if the Patriots are looking for a defensive identity, he's going to help them shape that. They also picked up Mac Hollins. I don't think that makes a big difference for the Pats, but receiver was a position of weakness last year, so every little bit helps. Hopefully the Patriots find more in the draft, but having another vet in the room is nice. He also brings some physicality that the other receivers lack. The New York Jets made a deal with the devil. Justin Fields. 2 years, $30 million. From the Jets' perspective, there weren't many options for them. The top free agents at quarterback were Aaron Rodgers and Sam Darnold. The bottom of the market was Zach Wilson or trying to trade for an aging vet like Geno Smith. Are you picking up what I'm putting down? All ex-Jets. The only quarterback available who hasn't already been destroyed by the Jets organization was Justin Fields. Will it work out? No, probably not. And I was once a Justin Fields believer. It's a thin draft at the position this year, and the Jets picked 7th. This is all they could do. Justin Fields wants to prove he's a starter, and lucky for him, circumstance more than talent has put him in a position for that. The Jets are cursed! But I'm starting to wonder if maybe Fields is too. The Bears didn't exactly surround him with talent. They only added when Caleb Williams came to town. The Steelers didn't have much outside of a temperamental George Pickens, and Fields was replaced anyway. And now he gets the Jets job after Davante Adams leaves town? Is this a case of being double cursed? Or does a curse cancel out another curse? Cooper Rush signed with the Baltimore Ravens on a 2-year deal worth $12 million. I don't see the fit here, but he's a solid backup option. Probably the best they've had in years. The Ravens have enough around him that if he were forced into action for a bit, I wouldn't be concerned. In fact, one of those options is the addition of DeAndre Hopkins, who signed a 1-year deal worth up to $6 million. I guess he'll be filling the Nelson Aguilar role, if such a thing exists outside of dropping passes. Not a very busy free agency for the Ravens. However, they already re-signed fullback Patrick Ricard, who weighs all the pounds and is often an important, if not overlooked, part of their run game blocking. I'll tell you who was more busier: the Cincinnati Bengals. They franchise tagged T. Higgins for the 2nd year in a row. Take that, you son of a bitch! Oh wait, no, they like him. And then worked out new deals for both Higgins and Jamar Chase, which was smart, but kind of unfair. Joe Burrow is a top-tier quarterback. Shouldn't he be forced to work with low-quality receivers to prove his greatness? Please tell me his wife and/or girlfriend is a 4. I need balance in this world. T. Higgins is a good receiver. He deserves to get paid. But after all that money, the team didn't really get any better. It just kind of stayed the same. They even re-signed tight end Mike Gesicki. There's not a lot to see here defensively to say they improved their situation for next season. The Cleveland Browns paid Myles Garrett all the money to stay. That makes sense, but it's not like anything is going to be different this year because of it. They traded Dorian Thompson-Robinson for Kenny Pickett. On the surface, that's fine. No need to keep Dorian Thompson-Robinson. He's not a starter and his name's too long. Do they view Pickett as a potential starter? He feels like a Gardner Minshew level passer, but without the benefit of the jean shorts. I don't mean to pick on him, but last year I saw a football throw him. That is not a joke. You can look that up on your local internet. The Browns' free agency imports are pretty uninspiring. The Pittsburgh Steelers made a huge move trading for DK Metcalf, but we don't know who's going to be throwing him the ball. Right now, Mason Rudolph is the starting quarterback. That won't last long, but I don't like the options lingering for them. Aaron Rodgers, maybe? Maybe Russ comes back? Was adding DK Metcalf to George Pickens an attempt to sweeten the deal for a potential passer? Or an attempt to add players with large catch radiuses to make up for a subpar quarterback? It looks like Steeler football for another season, a top-tier defense, and crossed fingers. I don't understand their process over there. You could say that they're in the mix every year, or that they're stuck in the middle every year. Christian Kirk was traded to the Houston Texans. He's still on the right side of 30, just 28 years old, and it only cost them a 7th-round pick. With Stephon Diggs injured and gone, and Tank Dell injured but returning, Kirk seems like a solid ad for them. Hope he gets open quick. Their offensive line still seems kind of terrible, although they shipped one of their terrible starters off, trading guard Kenyon Green to the Eagles in exchange for safety CJ Gardner-Johnson. A good deal for the Texans, who get a mouthy, tough guy for their secondary. They also signed Nick Neiman, Darrell Taylor, and Sheldon Rankins, adding depth to their defense at all levels. The Indianapolis Colts' most interesting move was bringing Daniel Jones in. I still think they want Anthony Richardson to succeed, but his leash just got that much shorter. I'm not saying Jones is the answer for the Colts, but Shane Steichen has to be thinking about job security, and having that rest solely on Richardson's progression is like trying to catch a falling knife. Steichen won't survive another losing season, and he knows that. I think he'll be willing to make the switch if and when he needs to. That's just the business. That being said, it's pretty crazy when you realize that Anthony Richardson is still just 22 years old. The decision-making part of his brain is still developing. After the Jacksonville Jaguars shipped Christian Kirk off to the Texans, they plugged that hole by signing Dyami Brown on a 1-year deal worth $10 million. Not a bad deal for a compliment receiver to go with Brian Thomas Jr. The Jags lost Evan Ingram, so it's probably Brenton Strange time at the tight end. Although I wouldn't bank on it. They also brought in tight ends Hunter Long and Johnny Munt, who I'm sure won't be featured, but might steal enough work from Strange to keep him from mattering in fantasy football. The team's splash free agent signing was cornerback Jordan Lewis to a 3-year deal worth about $30 million. The Tennessee Titans signed Dan Moore Jr. to a 4-year, $82 million contract, and the fact that I'm talking about an offensive lineman should say everything you need to know about the Titans' free agency. Teams need guards, I'm not saying they don't, but that's their big free agent signing, and that's a lot of cheddar. Moore is now tied to be the 8th highest paid left tackle in the league. Good for you, Dan. Take their stupid money. They don't know what to do with it. But who cares as long as the Titans are better, right? O-line seemed to be a position of need for them, so are they better with Dan Moore? Well, according to some, Moore's biggest weakness is pass protection. Last year, he allowed 12 sacks, the most of any left tackle in the league. That seems bad. The Denver Broncos have a new tight end in Evan Engram. That's a big upgrade over Adam Troutman, Lucas Kroll, and whoever Nate Atkins is. They didn't use the tight end position a ton last year in Denver. That could be because their wide receivers are so good, Bo Nix was a rookie, or because they were Adam Troutman, Lucas Kroll, and whoever Nate Atkins is. But they're paying Engram $23 million on a 2-year deal, so they're likely to use him. Maybe a lot. Sean Payton is apparently obsessed with finding someone to play what he calls the Joker role, made famous by Heath Ledger, which, as best I can tell, is just an elite pass-catching option that's not a receiver. I would have thought that Greg Dulcich was a perfect fit for that, but I guess not, because he's fucking gone. So maybe Evan Engram can fill that role and provide something special for the team. The Broncos also signed linebacker Dre Greenlaw and safety Talanoa Hufanga. I like both those moves. Greenlaw was a huge get and should mix in with that defense real nice. The Kansas City Chiefs won the Swaggy Awards by grabbing Gardner Minshew on a 1-year deal to back up Mahomes. Mostly, they just re-signed their own guys. Kareem Hunt, Marquise Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster for some reason. Could be a clerical error. Nick Bolton got a 3-year, $45 million contract. Running back Elijah Mitchell is new to the team. I like him a lot, but I don't know that he can stay healthy long enough to matter. They also added corner Christian Fulton on a 2-year, $20 million deal. The Chiefs are boring. Geno Smith was traded to the Las Vegas Raiders in exchange for a 3rd-round pick. That is a huge deal. The Raiders have been walking around without socks for years, getting calluses on their feet and walking all tender. Not anymore. Geno Smith is socks. Comfortable cotton socks. Now he just needs somebody to throw the ball to, because I don't see much outside Jacoby Myers and Brock Bowers. They also picked up whatever's left of Raheem Mostert. I love that. He's still got all the speed. That's a cheap 1-year deal. He should jump right in front of Zamir White. They also re-signed a lot of defenders and added safety Jeremy Chin with a 2-year, $16 million deal. I think their defense is underrated. They just need to turn that offense around. And I think they took a big step in doing that. I like what the Raiders are doing, and I'm curious to see what they do in the draft as they navigate the waters towards being serious people. The Los Angeles Chargers signed guard Mekhi Becton to a 2-year, $20 million deal. A big man for a big payday if you want to run the ball. Not such a big deal? Signing Najee Harris. A 1-year deal at just over $5 million fully guaranteed. I'm not a huge Najee believer. I always felt like Jaylen Warren showed more in the Steelers' ground game. Najee runs more like a snowplow. Based on the current depth chart and the deal, I expect him to get a ton of volume. Basically, they're going to run him into a fine paste. The Chargers also re-signed Khalil Mack and got corner Elijah Molden on a 3-year deal for $18 million. I wasn't sure if I was going to make this video. I love the chaos that is free agency, but this isn't a news channel or a comedy football channel. And if I don't see something funny, then I don't make a video. Lucky for us, we have the Cowboys. Just a sec. Okay. The Cowboys had a pretty piss-poor ground game last year, but eventually, Rico Dowdle squeaked out over 1,000 yards. But he's gone now. The Cowboys need to restock their running back room, which is currently haunted by Ezekiel Elliott's ghost. And they did that with Miles Sanders and Javonte Williams? Bryce Young had more rushing yards last year than Miles Sanders. Sanders hasn't seen 1,000 yards since 2022. Javonte Williams has never topped 1,000 yards in his career, and he hasn't been right since he tore his everything 3 years ago. These are withering depth pieces. These men would have better luck building a ladder to the moon than leading the league in rushing. I have to assume that the Cowboys are going to address the position in the draft. If they don't, they'll have one of the saddest running back by committees in the league. They took a similar approach with their defensive free agent signings, with Dante Fowler, Peyton Turner, Solomon Thomas, and trading for corner Kaiir Elam. Technically, these are all human men with hands and feet who probably love their mamas and will most likely pass their physicals. But not very inspiring. I don't see what Jerry sees here. But then again, I don't have cataracts. They let Cooper Rush walk, so I assume they're looking for a young guy to back up Dak Prescott, an understudy for the underachieving. They also lost DeMarcus Lawrence, who thought he'd have a better chance of winning with a depleted Seahawks team than the Cowboys. I'm not sure that's true, but I love the sentiment that he left Texas for sunnier days in Seattle. But it's not all bad. I did like two things that they did. They traded for linebacker Kenneth Murray Jr. I think that's an improvement. And they re-signed Kevontae Turpin, a dangerous special teams weapon that could score anytime he touches the ball. The New York Giants do not have a quarterback. What the fuck are they doing? Okay, they do technically have Tommy Cutlets, but we're not seriously doing that again. Are they in the Aaron Rodgers market or hoping Shedeur Sanders falls to number 3? Holy shit, maybe the Kenny Pickett trade does make sense. Owner John Mara thinks they're only a quarterback away from competing. Yeah, I bet 20 other teams feel the same way. Whatever they do with the most important position in sports outside of fluffer, they signed corner Paulson Adebo to a 3-year deal worth $54 million. I really like that signing for the stupid Giants. Before breaking his femur last October, Adebo seemed to be in the midst of a breakout. If you're looking for a free agent corner this offseason, Adebo feels like one of the better ones. The Philadelphia Eagles had their defensive roster pilfered. Milton Williams, Josh Sweat, Darius Slay, gone. And I would fill my underoos if it wasn't for the fact that Howie Roseman had replacements for all of them already on the roster. Well, except for one, which is why it was so important that they re-signed linebacker Zach Bond, which they did. A 3-year deal worth over $50 million. That was a way more important signing than any free agent on the market. They might be shopping Dallas Goedert, which is why they brought in tight ends Harrison Bryant and Kylen Granson. It's been pretty quiet for the Eagles, but they do have a ton of draft capital. The Washington Commanders, on the other hand, made all the moves. Deebo Samuel was acquired in a trade for a 5th-round pick, which feels kinda low, but maybe I'm thinking of the Deebo of old. Whereas this Deebo is just old. 29 years old now. He peaked in 2021 with over 1,400 yards. Last year, he had 670 yards and 3 touchdowns. He also missed time with a calf strain, a rib and wrist injury, and played through other injuries. I think he's still got it. He just needs to be on the field. The Commanders also signed a wave of defensive linemen, so many I'm not even gonna list them all. It was clearly a priority to them because it would be embarrassing to get run over by Miles Sanders. The Chicago Bears showed more investment in the trenches than World War I, with more signings than a deaf person. Guard Jonah Jackson, traded from the Rams. Guard Joe Thuney, traded from the Chiefs. Center Drew Dahlman signed a 3-year deal worth $42 million. They will protect Caleb Williams or die trying. New coach Ben Johnson gets it. It's hard to throw touchdowns with an edge defender wrapped around your taint. Nice additions for the Bears, as well as edge Dayo Adengbo, signed to a 3-year deal. It's actually not that many signings after all. It just feels like it because they attacked positions of weakness with gusto. The Bears already feel better, and they still have a whole offseason to hose down the halls of the facility and get rid of that Matt Eberflus stink. The Detroit Lions probably don't need a ton, or I hope they don't because they didn't do a ton. Corner DJ Reed feels like a nice addition, and I guess they finally saw enough from linebacker Derek Barnes to extend him. He signed a 3-year deal worth over $25 million. Some say they overpaid. I think they're still waiting for him to hit his potential, though. The Packers signed corner Nate Hobbs to a 4-year contract worth $48 million. Hobbs can play inside and outside. Wherever he plays, the Packers are paying him to make a difference. They also signed guard Aaron Banks to a 4-year deal at $77 million. Depending on who you read, Banks is either coming off a great year or his worst. He was either the 2nd best guard available in free agency or the 9th, and this was either a good signing for the Packers or they just overpaid for an average at best player. I tried to form an opinion, but ultimately decided that it's just a guard and I don't care. The Minnesota Vikings traded for running back Jordan Mason. That's an extremely solid depth option behind Aaron Jones. Mason signed a 2-year deal with them and pocketed $7 million guaranteed, with potential for up to 12. The Vikings went on a spending spree, $88 million to guard Will Fries on a 5-year deal, $51 to Jonathan Allen for 3 years, $30 to Javon Hargrave, $54 to re-sign corner Byron Murphy. They spent a lot on the defensive side of the ball to build a very clear identity, and that identity is Daddy has money. The Atlanta Falcons are interesting to me, and not just because they're holding Kirk Cousins hostage. They signed edge Leonard Floyd to a one-year deal. I think that, plus the addition of linebacker Divine Diablo to an already good defense, is very interesting. The Falcons are a team with a lot that could just simply fall into place for them next season. The Carolina Panthers signed Rico Dowdle to a one-year deal worth up to $6 million. There is no doubt, if Chuba Hubbard is fully healthy, he's their lead back. However, Miles Sanders is gone, Jonathan Brooks tore his ACL for a second time and will likely miss the entire 2025 season. Dowdle was a need for the team. Grabbing a guy who finished with 1,000 yards last season to be your backup is a nice get. They also signed a bunch of defenders and safety Trayvon Moehrig, Bobby Brown III, Christian Roseboom, and they extended J.C. Horn with a big money deal. These are all smart moves that could lead to more wins this season. The New Orleans Saints re-signed tight end Juwan Johnson with a 3-year deal for $30 million, and I find it fascinating that he chose to return to the Saints. Gumbo can't taste that good. But they also threw a bunch of money at Justin Reed and Chase Young. But I don't see those moves nearly as interesting as the money would suggest. It feels like the Saints are still treading water in an oil spill. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers signed Hassan Reddick because somebody had to. I know last year was weird for him, but it was the Jets. So maybe he returns to form and it never happened. They also re-signed Chris Godwin for less money than he could have made somewhere else. That was a surprise. But that's fantastic for Baker Mayfield and for the Bucs. Godwin was one of the league's most productive receivers last year until his Week 7 ankle injury, and after, Jalen McMillan filled in for him nicely. It looks like the Bucs are trending in the right direction. The Arizona Cardinals spent most of their offensive money so far on backups, but they splurged on defense with lineman Dalvin Tomlinson and edge Josh Sweat. Sweat signed a 4-year deal worth $74 million. He's coming off a huge Super Bowl performance with 2.5 sacks and obviously knows Coach Gannon from his time with the Eagles. I think the defense got a little better. I'm not sure if the team did, though. I still never know what to expect from this offense, but you pay to ride the ride, even though Kyler Murray isn't tall enough to get on it with you. The Los Angeles Rams let Cooper Kupp walk and replaced him with Davante Adams, a 2-year deal worth $46 million. Kupp was good, but this is an upgrade. They re-signed Tutu Atwell, too. So Matthew Stafford still has plenty of great options to spread the ball around. They didn't grab much defensively, but they didn't have to. The strength of the Rams is their young defense. They've been drafting really well on that side of the ball. After the San Francisco 49ers traded Deebo Samuel away, they picked up receiver Demarcus Robinson. That is a very solid, probably underrated signing for them. He'll join Ricky Pearsall, Juwan Jennings, and Brandon Ayuk to beg for non-George Kittle targets. That could actually work and keep costs low enough to pay Brock Purdy, which he freaking deserves. As I said earlier, they traded away Jordan Mason, so Isaac Guerrero slides right in behind Christian McCaffrey now. They also picked up Mac Jones to back up Brock Purdy because it is funny. And finally, the Seattle Seahawks picked up the big free agency quarterback prize of Sam Darnold, which just a year ago would have included a sarcastic tone, but here we are. I have no idea what Seattle is thinking. There are so many ways that this could go wrong. The best I've seen this described so far is a meme that went something like this. They traded Geno Smith away because they already know who he is. But Sam Darnold could be anything. He could even be Geno Smith. Some believe a light switch was turned on for Darnold, and that last season was an example of that. He clearly balled out for most of the season. I cannot deny that, but I also cannot deny every year of his career prior to that. His time with the 49ers and the Vikings probably did teach him a few things, but I don't buy that he's a completely different quarterback now. The last 2 games of the season showed how easy it is to slip back into bad habits when you're under pressure. I think Darnold can be successful again, but just like the Vikings, he needs the right situation, and I'm not sure that the Seahawks have that for him. They traded DK Metcalf away and replaced him with a 31-year-old Cooper Kupp, a 3-year deal for $45 million, and then added Marquez Valdes-Scantling on a 1-year deal. They also signed DeMarcus Lawrence to their defense on a 3-year deal. And that's 32. Now, there's no such thing as winning free agency, but this is the first domino in what will end with a Super Bowl win for one team. So who improved the most so far this offseason? I could easily say the Broncos. They made a lot of smart moves and improved on both sides of the ball. They also turned points of weakness into strengths. But since that team was already pretty good, I'm going to go with the Bears, who flat out knew what they needed to do for their young quarterback to develop, and attacked it. Don't fuck around in the draft. Get some experienced linemen out there to block for Caleb. That's gonna help them win more games this year than they did last year. The biggest risks have to go to the Jets, Steelers, Seahawks, and Giants. I think they're all primed for disappointment. And the biggest head-scratcher of free agency remains the Browns. Even though they did the thing they had to do, that's about all they did. I can't say they're any better than last year. What's it gonna take to make this team better? I already suggested a uniform makeover. It's like you're not even watching this channel. Thanks so much for watching Shut Up Football. What do you think of this NFL free agency period? Tell me in the comments below. Say hi to your mom for me, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace!
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys. It sound right, boy.
Daddy has money.